Greetings, chess friends. Welcome back. We are going to see a game today with some characteristics unlike any other. We're going to see 14 pawn moves in a row by one side, and in the middle of all that, 10 knight moves in a row by the other side. So you can imagine a bit of entertainment going on, but there's some good lessons as these are both top masters. So Frank Marshall should be familiar to most American grandmaster, one of the best players in the world, although not quite at that Capablanca Alekhine level in those days. Ragozin, maybe a little less known, his opening precedes him. The move bishop to b4 in the Queen's Gambit declined. And I found out, actually, in researching a little bit, that he was the correspondence chess world champion. So very knowledgeable and a great writer and author of chess as well. So let's jump in. Sicilian defense starts pretty normal. If you know anything about Marshall, he was definitely in that attacking, squashbuckling type chess. There we go, b4. This so-called wing gambit. I wouldn't recommend it, but it definitely has its perks. You are trying to lure the black pawn, and there we go, away from the center. And typically this so-called Benko style of chess, giving the two A and B pawns, but here we go. Black says, no thanks, I won't take the second pawn. I believe if you do take, the best move is d4. Of course, you will eventually take that pawn back. So very interesting. Again, keep in mind that white is going to make only pawn moves. You'll see how unbelievable this gets. Here we are on the fourth move of the game. So a takes b4, and natural would be to take this back. I would assume a move like d4 comes next, and white has claim to the center, and black has an extra pawn, and we just play on. But instead he chooses knight, and from here, knight c6, black only makes knight moves for the next 10 moves. So here we go, move 2, knight moves. Here we go, very exciting, knight d4, c3. Again, you might think this is kind of beginner chess, but these are two of roughly the top 10 players in the world. So the game played in 1940, so maybe a little past their prime, I would say. Knight f4, you can already find perhaps maybe going back would have been better, but hard to say. Knight f4, and you can just feel these knights getting kicked around. This is one of the problems, they say, with bringing out your queen too early. It gets chased around by smaller pieces, as well as why you should occupy the center with pawns. That's just the classic chess rule. Put pawns in the center, your king and queen pawns. And if you don't do that, then something like this could occur where the other team just steamrolls you. The pawns are the weakest piece in chess, but everybody has to run and yield to them. So if a pawn attacks, you have to run. f4, and this comes with the threat of f5, winning a minor piece. At the moment, we are equal in material. Remember, black never took back that pawn. So black says, well, here, I guess I have to sacrifice. I'm going to lose one of these knights. This one especially has just no moves to make, and sacrifices saying, I'll get 2 pawns for the piece. Still, move 11 now. We've played 11 for both players. White hasn't moved any back row piece. Unbelievable game here, and still plays a good move, d4, with this so-called bathtub pawn structure, almost the only pawns we have left. The knight is now hanging. Surely he would take that instead of moving another pawn. But I would imagine you get a bit of momentum and you just want to keep moving pawns. However, right, when you're sitting there in the middle of this game, I just want to keep going. However, this next move is the best move, h4, loving it. The only pawn that hadn't moved, the lonely h pawn. And again, that threatens to trap this knight on the same square, but it's a different knight. e6, h5, there it is, folks, the last one. 14 pawn moves in a row. In the middle of all that, before this e6 move was played, we had only seen knight moves for the last 10 moves by black. So a truly bizarre turn of events, but an exciting one, because these are strong players. Okay, finally black plays bishop b4 check, and we have to get out of check. Bishop d2. No more pawn moves. And we develop our knight takes d2. This knight moves in white, again, with an overwhelming position, dominating the center with Not any king safety issues, surprisingly. Usually your pawns need to guard your king a bit, and that's not the case here because black wasn't able to get any development. Here with nice open lines of attack, we have this knight hopping in, perhaps queen g4, h6. This bishop can perhaps choose which way to go. Really, it's just a nice position for white in all ways. Space advantage gives you so many other advantages. H6 is again the best move, and that's going to jar loose some new square, perhaps f6. Watch how this all unfolds. Here, he plays knight f6. Why not? We don't want to go instead to d6 where that can be traded. I would assume white's doing well, but this knight is going to live on here in a great, great outpost, as good as it gets. King f8, you must know you're winning when you have this type of game, but finishing it off is still a challenge. He goes knight f3, and this knight likely going to g5, the only real option going forward. But it also starts to connect with taking this pawn, not just greedy, but we make pass pawn, which is close to the finish. And in an effort to free themselves, Ragozin really opens up the lines of attack for white. In general, the idea that if you are under attack or less space, trade some pieces away. But this trade, queen takes and queen takes, just favors white. Now, the d file is white's and white's alone. The invasion there is nearly a checkmating threat, and you can't even escape this and clear the back rank. So this game has gone horribly wrong. It started off as a bit of a gimmick, the funny nature of moving all your pawns and you're moving all your knights. But really, white played a fantastic game here. Like I said, these are not just average players. They are some of the world's best. And white just absolutely outplaying his opponent. So king e7, which at least clears some of the back rank and not just allowing rook d8 the invasion. And rook h3, a nice rook lift here. This rook is clearly going to d3, and there's a checkmating pattern approaching here. b6, hard to suggest a move. Engine gives mate in 6 after rook d3. He does not play that Marshall, but still the game ends in less than that. Bishop g2, hitting the rook in the corner. What can you do? Rook b8. And again, best move mate in 7, rook h to d3. But I like his move, which is very, very good. Doesn't spoil anything. Knight g takes h7. This position is bad. You're down a piece for just a pawn. But worse than that, you're getting mated. This is nearly Zugzwang. Let's even just play a lazy move. Notice you cannot move the bishop. Moving the bishop, rook d7 is checkmate. Wow, that comes in a flash. So you can't move your rook. The bishop can just capture it. You can't move the bishop. It's checkmate. This rook has no real options. I suppose you could think about this one, but it's certainly no real chance. Engine finding mate in a bunch of moves. But of course, we have this pawn, rook d3, mate in 15. Of course, we're not going to see that, but white is just winning. So really a cool game. Knight takes pawn, and that was the finish. Let's just play kind of a blank move here, a6, and the finish would be like so. This threatens rook d7, bishop takes, other rook lands on d7, and that's just checkmate. You can start throwing some pieces in the way, but essentially let's show it. Pawn takes pawn, rook d7, bishop takes, and rook takes. That is checkmate. This knight guards f8. This knight does the rest of the work, guarding the other squares. So really nice game by Marshall. Again, fun one with all the pawns moving. We do not recommend the wing gambit in this channel, but otherwise, this is a cool game. Check out the games of Frank Marshall. And if you like the opening Ragozin, which I do, but you may perhaps like the player as well. He was, again, a strong master of the time. So nice game, interesting one. And I like to show also some of the games that really don't follow the typical path. Especially recently, they're having these Chess 960 events. So those games that kind of are their own unique creation are fun and entertaining to me, interesting, and we see the laws of chess being stretched a little bit. So good stuff. Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed. Comment, subscribe, do whatever you want. Keep watching. I hope you are improving your chess game. Thank you all again. Really appreciate the watch.